There's a moment when everything shifts, the instant you see through the carefully constructed facade of someone close to you. What was once hidden is now unmistakable. You recognize the manipulation, the subtle control, the quiet ways they shaped your responses. But something even more revealing happens next. They realize it too, and that terrifies them. This is not mere discomfort, it is a direct threat. They once dictated the terms, effortlessly pulling your emotions like strings. But now, your stillness unsettles them. Your clarity dissolves their influence, and they cannot allow that. But they won't fight openly. That would mean admitting they've lost control. Instead, they scheme, they adapt. Their words become sharper, their actions more calculated. They test your patience, distort reality, and try to pull you back before it's too late. Today, we unveil 11 things toxic people do when they realize you understand Stoicism, and how to surpass them with wisdom and clarity. Stay with me, because knowing these tactics will forever change how you engage with the world. Let's begin. 1. They suddenly care more about you. At first, they are confused. They sense something is different about you, but they can't quite understand it. You used to be predictable, reactive, emotional, easily swayed by their words. But now you are unreadable, unshakable. It unsettles them, because for the first time, they realize they are losing control over you. Panic creeps in, but they won't show it. Instead, they adapt. And the first strategy they turn to, they act like they care. It starts subtly. They ask about your well-being more than usual. They offer compliments that seem oddly thoughtful. They bring up old memories, reminding you of how close you used to be. They mirror your calmness, pretending to admire your newfound perspective. It all seems genuine, but something feels off. At first you wonder, have they changed? But then their actions escalate. They become overly invested in your choices, offering unsolicited advice disguised as concern. I just don't want you to become too cold, you know. I admire your self-control, but don't you think you're being too distant from people? If you dismiss them, they subtly shift the narrative, implying that you're different in a way that is wrong, not empowering. Now, the trap has been set. Imagine this: a manipulative friend who once guilt-tripped you into doing things for them suddenly becomes unusually kind. They start asking about your life, telling you they miss the old days when you used to rely on each other. You sense something isn't quite right, but the warmth in their voice makes you second-guess yourself. Maybe they really do care. Then, when you finally let your guard down, the shift happens. They need something, a favor, a commitment, a return to the old dynamic where they held the upper hand. And if you say no, their mask begins to slip. This is where Stoicism protects you. You do not need to respond with hostility, but you must remain aware. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. A person's nature is revealed through their consistent actions, not sudden gestures. So you watch. You do not fall for words. You observe patterns. If their care is real, it will endure without expectation. If it is a manipulation tactic, it will soon shift to frustration, guilt-tripping, or passive-aggressive behavior when they see they cannot sway you. And when that moment comes, you will realize they never cared about you. They only cared about controlling you. But that power is no longer theirs to wield. 2. They subtly justify themselves. At first, they tried to regain control over you through feigned kindness. But when those tactics failed, something else began to unsettle them. They realized you saw through them completely. And now they feel exposed, vulnerable. The truth about them, Their lies, their selfish motives, their emotional manipulation is no longer hidden in plain sight. You have stripped them of their power to deceive, and that terrifies them. But instead of admitting their wrongdoings outright, they take a different approach. They start justifying themselves, but in a way that is so subtle, so calculated, that it almost feels like they aren't making excuses at all. It begins with casual remarks, spoken in passing, as if they are simply reflecting on life. "I've made some mistakes, but I've always had good intentions." Or, "You know, people change. I was just in a tough place back then." They don't apologize. They don't take accountability. Instead, they rewrite the past, reshaping the narrative so that their actions seem understandable, even justified. And if you don't call them out on it, they take your silence as acceptance. Imagine this. Someone in your life has repeatedly manipulated you, twisted your words, and used your kindness against you. But now, you are different. You are no longer swayed by their tactics. One day, in conversation, they say, "I know I wasn't perfect, but you have to understand, I had a lot going on at the time." They look at you, watching closely, waiting to see if you will challenge them. If you nod, if you let it pass, they will take it as validation that their behavior wasn't as bad as it truly was. This is their last attempt to control the story. If they can't make you question yourself, they will try to make you question your perception of them, because if they can plant even the smallest seed of doubt, they know they can slowly weave their way back into your trust. But you see through this. This is where Stoicism protects you. Epictetus once said, "If someone speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself against their accusations, but reply, 'You obviously don't know me well, or you would have mentioned more.'" The Stoics understood that truth does not require explanation or justification. Reality stands on its own, regardless of how others try to distort it. So you don't argue. You don't challenge them directly. You let their words fall into the silence they deserve. Because a person who is truly remorseful does not justify their actions. They take responsibility. They do not reshape the past to appear more favorable. They acknowledge it fully. And if they cannot do that, they have not changed. So when someone who once manipulated you begins subtly excusing themselves, stay still. Say nothing. Watch their discomfort grow as they realize their words hold no power over you anymore. Because they are not seeking forgiveness. They are seeking permission to keep being who they are. And that is something you will never give them again. 3. They manipulate you through guilt. When manipulation through care and justification fails, they escalate to a more powerful emotional weapon, guilt. If they cannot control you through confrontation, they will attempt to control you through shame, obligation, and self-doubt. It starts with seemingly harmless statements. "I guess I don't matter to you anymore." "I must have done something terrible for you to treat me this way." These words are carefully chosen. They are not direct accusations, but emotional traps. Their goal is to make you feel cruel, unreasonable, and heartless for choosing yourself over them. Then they raise the stakes. They remind you of things they have done for you in the past, whether real or exaggerated, to make you feel indebted. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me." If that does not work, they may escalate further, painting themselves as victims. Suddenly, you are not just setting boundaries, you are abandoning them. Imagine this. A manipulative friend who constantly drained your energy now claims you were their only real support in life. They remind you of times when you were there for them, subtly implying that you now owe them your continued presence. If you resist, they sigh, look hurt, and say, "I guess I was wrong about you." It stings. It makes you second-guess yourself, and that is exactly what they want. But they don't stop at personal guilt, they expand it. They may involve others, turning people against you by twisting the story. They frame you as selfish or uncaring, making sure the social pressure forces you back into their grasp. Even our friends agree, you've changed. If direct guilt-tripping fails, they try to isolate you, making you believe you are the one in the wrong. At times, they may even resort to extreme measures, making dramatic statements about how your actions have harmed them. I don't know if I can go on without you. This is one of the most dangerous forms of guilt manipulation. It preys on your empathy and makes you feel like their well-being is your responsibility. But remember, a person's happiness is not yours to bear. This is where Stoicism saves you. When guilt begins to creep in, pause and ask yourself, is this truly my fault, or is this just their way of regaining control? True guilt arises when you violate your own moral code, not when you refuse to be manipulated. A Stoic understands that no one can assign you guilt unless you accept it. If your actions align with reason and virtue, there is no shame in standing firm. So, instead of defending yourself, you observe. You let their words pass through you without attachment. You remember that a genuine person who respects you would never need to use guilt as a weapon. If needed, create emotional distance, reduce interactions, avoid unnecessary explanations, and refuse to engage in guilt-driven conversations. The less they can manipulate your emotions, the weaker their hold becomes. And when they realize guilt no longer works on you, they will lose the ability to control you forever. Because you are no longer a puppet in their hands, you are free. 4. They lie to cover up the truth. When manipulative individuals feel their control slipping away, they resort to one of their most deceptive tactics. They lie to obscure reality. The moment they sense that you see them for who they truly are, they panic, not outwardly, but internally, realizing that their carefully constructed facade is beginning to crack. To counter this, they fabricate complex, layered falsehoods designed to confuse you and everyone around you. Their goal is simple: to distort reality so much that you begin to doubt your own perceptions. At first, these lies may seem harmless, small exaggerations, vague justifications, or innocent omissions. But when they realize you are not falling for these subtle distortions, they escalate. They craft entire narratives to rewrite past events, twisting facts to paint themselves as the victim or as someone misunderstood. They might even accuse you of being the one who is mistaken or paranoid, gaslighting you into second-guessing what you know to be true. Imagine this: you confront a colleague who has been taking credit for your work. Instead of admitting the truth, they spin a web of deception, telling your boss, "I actually led that project from the beginning. I don't know why there's confusion, but I think some people might be misunderstanding the situation." You know the truth, but suddenly, the more they repeat their version, the more others start to question what really happened. Their lies aren't just about protecting themselves, they are about discrediting you. They manipulate conversations, fabricate alibis, and sometimes even plant misinformation to make their lies appear more convincing. This strategy isn't just about avoiding accountability. It's about ensuring that even if the truth comes out, it is so muddled that no one knows what to believe. But here's where Stoicism becomes your shield. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "The truth never needs to be defended. Lies require effort to sustain. They must be maintained, reinforced, and expanded. But the truth? It stands firm, unwavering, needing no justification." So, how do you respond when someone lies to cover up the truth? You do not engage in their web of deception. Instead, you hold on to what you know. You refuse to be drawn into their distortions, and most importantly, you let time do its work. Lies, no matter how intricate, eventually collapse under their own weight. People who consistently deceive will reveal contradictions, inconsistencies, and desperation as their web unravels. Do not waste energy arguing with a liar. They thrive on conflict, knowing that the more confusion they create, the longer they can avoid exposure. Instead, remain composed. Keep your actions aligned with integrity, knowing that your truth will endure even when their falsehoods crumble. And when that moment comes, when their lies unravel and the truth becomes undeniable, they will face their greatest fear, a world where they can no longer manipulate, no longer deceive, and no longer control those who have awakened to reality. Because in the end, deception is a fragile weapon. The truth, however, is unbreakable. 5. They only show up when they need something. When they realize they can no longer manipulate your emotions, they pivot to a different strategy, exploiting your kindness. If they can't control your thoughts, your reactions, or your perception of them, they will attempt to leverage what remains: your generosity, your sense of duty, and your natural inclination to help. But this time, it's purely transactional. It starts subtly. They reach out after long periods of silence, not to check in on you, but with a specific request. "Hey, I know we haven't talked in a while, but I really need a favor." Or, "I just remembered how good you are at insert skill. I could really use your help." They frame it as flattery, appealing to your competence, your sense of usefulness. But deep down, you know, they are not here for you, only for what you can give them. If you agree, they disappear just as quickly as they arrived. There are no follow-ups, no signs of genuine connection. But if you say no, that's when their real nature emerges. Suddenly they become cold, distant, or even resentful. You might hear accusations like, "Wow, I thought you were different," or "I guess I was wrong about you." The message is clear. You were only valuable to them as long as you were useful. Imagine this: a former friend who vanished from your life suddenly reappears, acting warm and nostalgic. They reminisce about old memories, but within minutes, the conversation shifts. "By the way, I was wondering if you could lend me some money." If you hesitate, their tone changes. The warmth fades. They were never here to reconnect. They were here to extract something from you. This is where Stoicism protects you. You do not need to justify setting boundaries. Epictetus once said, "He who is not a slave to necessity is truly free." If someone consistently treats you as nothing more than a resource, it is not your duty to accommodate them. So how do you respond? With clarity, without apology. If someone only appears when they need something, do not entertain them out of guilt. Instead, establish firm boundaries and enforce them without explanation. A simple response such as, "I'm not available for that," or "I can't commit to this," is enough. You owe no further justification. A true friend will respect your boundaries. A manipulator will reveal their disappointment. The key is to observe patterns. If a person vanishes when you have nothing to offer but reappears the moment they need something, they are not in your life for the right reasons. And by refusing to play their game, you remove their ability to use you as a convenience. And when they realize they can no longer exploit your kindness, they will be forced to face an unsettling truth. They never had control over you to begin with. Because your worth is not measured by how much you give, but by the strength with which you refuse to be used. 6. They try to undermine your confidence. When emotional manipulation fails, they resort to another powerful tactic, making you doubt yourself. They know that if they can't control your emotions, they might still be able to control your self-perception. By planting seeds of self-doubt, they attempt to chip away at your confidence, making you more vulnerable to their influence once again. It begins subtly. They may start with backhanded compliments like, "I admire how confident you are, even when you're wrong," or "You've changed. I just hope it's for the better." These remarks are designed to sound harmless, but leave you questioning yourself. When subtlety doesn't work, they escalate. They criticize your choices, dismiss your achievements, and question your abilities, all under the guise of being honest or just trying to help. Their goal is simple. If they can make you feel small, they can regain the upper hand. Imagine this. You have made significant progress in your personal growth, learning to set boundaries and stand firm in your beliefs. A manipulative colleague or friend notices this change and starts making condescending comments. "You've become so distant lately. I miss the old you." Or, "You think you're so wise now, but life doesn't work that way." They are not offering genuine feedback. They are attempting to make you second-guess yourself. They might even enlist others in their efforts, subtly spreading doubts among your peers. Suddenly you hear that people have been saying things like, "You've been acting strange lately," or "Are you sure this new mindset is really working for you?" The more isolated they can make you feel, the more likely you are to seek approval again, falling back into their control. But here's where Stoicism protects you. True confidence does not come from external validation, it comes from within. As Seneca wrote in Letters to Lucilius, "No man is crushed by fortune unless he first allows himself to be crushed." So what should you do when someone tries to undermine your confidence? Remain unmoved. Do not engage in their subtle jabs or feel the need to defend yourself. Instead, recognize their tactics for what they are, a desperate attempt to regain power. Practice self-assurance by grounding yourself in your own principles, not in the shifting opinions of others. If you know your actions are aligned with reason, integrity, and wisdom, there is nothing to doubt. Respond with calm certainty, not defensiveness. For example, if they say, "I don't think you're as strong as you act," simply respond, "That's your opinion." Or if they try to make you question your progress, you can say, "I'm comfortable with where I am." These responses remove their power while reaffirming your own. Over time, they will realize their words have no effect on you, and that is their greatest fear, that you no longer need their approval. Because true confidence is unshakable, and when they can no longer undermine you, they lose their grip over you forever. 7. They spread rumors and slander you. When they realize they can no longer manipulate you directly, they take a more insidious approach. They attempt to destroy your reputation. They understand that while they may no longer have power over your mind, they can still try to isolate you socially by turning others against you. It starts subtly. They plant small seeds of doubt in the minds of those around you. Offhand comments, seemingly innocent concerns, vague suggestions that something is off with you. "I don't know what happened, but they've really changed." Or, "I just hope they're okay. Something seems different." These remarks seem harmless, but their effect is calculated. To make people question you without ever realizing they are being manipulated. Then they escalate. They twist past events, take your words out of context, and fabricate stories that paint you as the problem. They imply that you are untrustworthy, difficult, or even malicious. And the worst part, they do it behind your back, ensuring you have no opportunity to defend yourself. Imagine this. You've made a conscious decision to distance yourself from someone toxic. You no longer engage in their drama, and you refuse to let them control your emotions. Then, you start noticing that mutual friends or colleagues are acting differently around you. Conversations are colder. People hesitate before responding to you. You later find out that rumors have been spread, claims that you have become arrogant, selfish, or unreliable. None of it is true, but the damage is already done. This is where Stoicism protects you. Epictetus taught, "If it is not under your control, do not let it disturb you." What others say about you is not within your power. Your responsibility is not to chase after lies, defend yourself against every false claim, or try to control how others perceive you. Your only duty is to live with integrity, ensuring that your actions speak louder than their words. So, how do you respond when someone spreads rumors about you? With unwavering composure. Do not engage in their slander, do not retaliate, and do not waste your energy on trying to correct every lie. Instead, remain steadfast in your actions. Let your character be your defense. If someone asks about the rumors, respond simply, "People will believe what they choose to believe." If others distance themselves because of what they've heard, let them go. The truth will reveal itself in time, and those who genuinely know you will see through the deception. By refusing to be drawn into their web of gossip, you deprive them of their power. When they see that their rumors do not affect you, they will become frustrated. Their lies only hold weight if you react, if you give them legitimacy by engaging. And when they realize you are unshaken, they will face an undeniable truth. You are beyond their reach, because no matter what they say, your integrity remains untouchable. 8. They try to isolate you from your support system. When they see that they can no longer manipulate you, they shift their focus to something even more destructive, separating you from those who support you. They understand that as long as you have strong, trustworthy people in your life, you are harder to control. Their goal, to make you feel alone, so you are more vulnerable to their influence once again. This tactic is subtle at first. They begin by sowing small doubts about the people in your life. "I don't think they really have your best interests at heart. Are you sure you can trust them? I heard they've been talking about you behind your back." These statements are carefully designed to make you question your closest relationships. They don't need to prove anything, they only need to make you doubt. If you start pulling away from your support system, they escalate. They spread misinformation, twist events, and create conflicts between you and others. Suddenly, you notice tension where there was once harmony. Friends become distant, trusted colleagues become hesitant. People who once stood by you now seem uncertain, and you don't know why. That is exactly what they want. Imagine this: you have a mentor, a friend, or a colleague who has always supported your growth. The manipulative person sees this and realizes they need to break that connection. They start planting doubts. They subtly imply that your mentor is jealous of you, that your friend is using you, or that your colleague has been saying negative things behind your back. If you believe them, you begin to distance yourself. And just like that, your strongest allies are gone, leaving you more exposed to their control. This is where Stoicism becomes your safeguard. A Stoic does not allow external forces to dictate the strength of their relationships. You do not abandon those who have proven their loyalty based on mere whispers. As Epictetus taught, the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. So how do you defend yourself against this tactic? By holding on to what you know to be true. If someone tries to make you question a relationship, ask yourself, what has this person's consistent behavior shown me? Do not be swayed by gossip or emotional manipulation. Judge people by their actions over time, not by the words of someone trying to deceive you. If you suspect someone is trying to isolate you, communicate directly with the people you trust. Instead of withdrawing, strengthen your relationships. Address concerns openly. Say, "I've been hearing things, but I want to hear your side." This prevents false narratives from taking root and ensures your support system remains intact. By refusing to be isolated, you deny them one of their most powerful weapons. You prove that their manipulations are meaningless, because true strength is not found in solitude forced upon you, but in the bonds you choose to nurture despite their attempts to break them. 9. They test your patience. When all else fails, when they can no longer manipulate you through guilt, isolation, or deceit, they resort to a final desperate tactic. They push you to your limits to see if you will break. Their aim is not just to test your patience, but to see if they can provoke you into reacting in a way that contradicts the strength you have cultivated. They want to see if you truly practice what you preach. They do this by placing you in frustrating, uncomfortable, or even humiliating situations. They may interrupt you constantly, dismiss your opinions, waste your time, or deliberately act in a way that they know irritates you. They will poke, prod, and provoke, waiting, watching, hoping for a moment where your composure slips, and they can say, "See, you haven't changed at all." Imagine this. You are in a meeting, and someone who has tried to undermine you repeatedly is now talking over you, disregarding your input, and making sarcastic remarks about your ideas. You feel the heat of frustration rising, the urge to retaliate growing stronger, but then you remember, this is a test. If you react emotionally, they win. If you remain calm, you prove that their influence over you is completely gone. That realization alone is enough to strip them of their power. This is where Stoicism becomes your greatest weapon. Instead of seeing their provocations as obstacles, see them as training. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Every time they attempt to frustrate you, it is an opportunity to strengthen your control, to refine your discipline, and to deepen your resilience. So how do you respond? By doing nothing, by choosing stillness, by allowing their actions to pass through you as if they were meaningless gusts of wind. A person who cannot be provoked is a person who cannot be controlled. If they interrupt you, pause. If they belittle you, smile. If they attempt to frustrate you, remain indifferent. Your lack of reaction is the most powerful response you can give. And when they see that their attempts to shake you have failed, they will be left with only one conclusion. They no longer have any power over you. Because patience is not just about waiting, it is about enduring with absolute mastery over oneself. 10. They become aggressive or threatening. When every other attempt at control fails, when manipulation, guilt, and slander no longer work, they resort to their final weapon, aggression and intimidation. Unable to influence you through subtler means, they now seek to dominate through fear. But this is not a display of power, it is a sign of their desperation. At first, their aggression might be verbal, raised voices, harsh words, or passive-aggressive remarks designed to provoke a reaction. You think you're so much better than everyone now. You'll regret treating me like this. These statements are crafted to instill doubt, fear, or guilt, to make you question whether standing your ground was the right choice. But when words fail, they escalate. They may attempt to intimidate you through their tone, body language, or outright threats. They might spread rumors more aggressively, damage your reputation, or attempt to harm your relationships. Some even resort to physical intimidation, standing too close, using aggressive gestures, or issuing direct threats. They want you to feel cornered, to believe that resistance is futile. Imagine this. A toxic co-worker who once manipulated you behind closed doors now openly discredits you in meetings. When you refuse to engage, they lash out, accusing you, undermining your work, or even warning you to watch yourself. You sense the shift, their frustration bubbling over, revealing the truth. They no longer have control, and it terrifies them. This is where Stoicism becomes your shield. Epictetus reminds us, "You cannot control the actions of others, but you can control how you respond. Their aggression is a reflection of their own weakness, not of your worth." So, how do you respond? With unwavering calm. Do not engage, retaliate, or react emotionally. Recognize their threats for what they are, the last attempt of a person who has lost control. If their behavior crosses the line into true danger, remove yourself from the situation and seek appropriate support, whether from HR, authorities, or trusted allies. Stoicism is not about tolerating abuse. It is about choosing your battles wisely. But if their aggression is merely an act of intimidation, the most powerful response is indifference. When you remain unshaken, they realize that no amount of threats will break you, and when they see their power fading, they are left with only one option: to accept that they have lost. Because true strength is not about fighting back, it is about standing firm in the face of fear and proving that no one, no matter how aggressive, can shake the foundation of your inner peace. 11. They remove themselves from your life. This is the final stage. After exhausting every manipulative tactic, guilt, deception, intimidation, and slander, they come to a realization. They can no longer control you. And when they know they have lost all power over you, they do the only thing left. They walk away. Not as an act of acceptance, but as an act of surrender. At first, they might frame it as their own decision. "You've changed, and I don't think we're compatible anymore. I don't need people like you in my life." They might act as if they are rejecting you, but in reality, they are retreating because they have no other option. They cannot manipulate, deceive, or intimidate you, so they remove themselves, hoping that their absence will somehow hurt you. But here is the truth. Their departure is your victory. Not because you defeated them, but because you stood firm in your principles and they realized they could no longer break you. You did not push them away. They left because they could not function without control. They needed you to doubt yourself, but you refused. Imagine this. A toxic friend who once guilt-tripped you into doing favors, spread rumors about you, and tried to make you feel inferior, suddenly stops contacting you. They block you, ignore you, or pretend you never existed. It may feel abrupt, but in reality, this is the clearest sign that your resilience has forced them to retreat. You have become untouchable in their eyes. This is where Stoicism reminds you of an essential truth. You did not need them to begin with. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest wealth is a mind content with what it has. You have lost nothing. If anything, you have gained clarity, freedom, and peace." So how do you respond when someone removes themselves from your life? With gratitude. You do not chase them. You do not try to fix things. You do not dwell on their departure. You simply acknowledge that their absence is proof of your strength. And when they leave, they will take with them all the chaos, manipulation, and negativity they once brought into your life. Their exit is not a loss. It is a final confirmation that you have won. When you practice Stoicism, you will witness incredible changes, not only in yourself, but in how others react to you. Some will respect you more, drawn to your newfound composure and strength. But those who thrive on manipulation, deception, and control will see you as a challenge. They will test you, push you, and try to break your resolve. Yet through it all, you will remain unmoved. Because true power does not come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself. You have now seen the 11 things evil people do when they realize you understand Stoicism. Each of these tactics is a desperate attempt to regain control, but the more you stand firm, the clearer their intentions become. The fact that they react this way is proof of your growth. They fear your independence because it exposes their weakness. And when they can no longer manipulate you, they will either change or remove themselves from your life entirely. Either way, you win. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you encountered any of these behaviors in your own life? How did you respond? Share your story in the comments. I read every one of them. If you want to continue exploring the path of Stoic strength, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to check out our next video. It's waiting for you on the screen now. Your life is yours. Don't let anyone control it.